As a multifamily broker, it's not unusual to hear from investors complain about overpriced listings that come to market. Many will ask me how the broker came up with that price, or why would I agree to go to market at that price? Well, I probably need to clue you in on the 3 types of listing opportunities every multifamily broker is presented with and how we think when we're deciding whether or not to take on the listing. You've got to watch this one. Let's go! First of all, I want to tackle the phrase overpriced listing. This is really important. The listing is overpriced to you. It's not overpriced if it was actually exposed to the market and later sold. And how many listings do you see in the last 5, 6, 7 years that were exposed to the market and not sold? Has it happened? Sure, but I'm telling you, it is a very, very tiny percentage that don't sell. So you have to be really careful as an investor not to tell the broker or the seller that their deal is overpriced, because you may end up looking silly in front of those 2 groups. Because think about it, how many deals have come to the market that you thought were overpriced and then sold again a couple years later for even more money? The factual answer, because I track every single closing, is every single one of them sell for more again. There might have been a handful of instances in the last several years in which I tracked a sold apartment complex and then saw what it sold for prior and saw that it sold prior for more. Almost never does that happen. Now listen, I get it. As a multifamily broker, I see a lot of deals close and I think to myself, whoo, that is crazy. They're never going to be able to make money from that. And then I'm wrong again, and they sell it and they sell it again and they make money, because everyone has a different vision for a property. Everyone has a different vision for how they're going to add value. And that vision might have been something you didn't think of and they did, or they were able to predict into the future better. Whatever the case may be, it's just better to say that that deal doesn't work for my return objectives and move on politely. Okay, let's dive into this. I'm going to talk about the 3 ways that all multifamily brokers are presented with a listing opportunity and how we decide whether or not to take on that listing. The first way is the most traditional, most common way that listings occur, which is a seller calls a listing broker and says, hey, please do a BOV on our property. We're thinking about listing it. We'd like to hear what your thoughts are on the value. The broker does the valuation. The seller likes what they see. Together they collaborate on marketing materials and building the Dropbox and going to market. And that's how the vast majority of listings are done, because brokers have access to tremendous amounts of data. We're always seeing what the deals are going for. We are able to predict, because of the big data we tracked, what they're going to sell for in the next 60 to 90 days. So it's very rare that any good multifamily broker who's transactional a lot is going to misprice something. You may not like the price, but the price is probably going to be right. And since brokers are doing over 90% of every sale of every apartment complex, they are the market. They make the market oftentimes. Now, the second type of listing opportunity that a broker may be presented with is when a seller calls a broker and tells the broker the price they want. Then the broker does their BOV and can't figure out any way that any human being on earth would pay anywhere near that price. So then the broker passes on that listing for fear of ruining their own reputation and, of course, tarnishing that property by exposing it to the market and it not selling. No broker wants to do that. Now, in this instance, the broker notices that this investor is of the type, just based on the conversation they had, where they have zero wiggle room in their price, no matter what the market says. Now, this also assumes this broker is pretty good at what they do, and they have enough going on in their world. They just don't want to take on a listing that they strongly feel is not going to sell. Some new junior brokers may just want something to work on. Now, in this situation, a broker may hold on to that listing as kind of a pocket listing. He doesn't have anything executed. There's no exclusive listing. He just knows that property is available and may mention it to someone who either has more money than brains, which really doesn't exist in this level of deal making, or someone is in such a bad place with their 1031 exchange with hardly any days left, and the amount of money they're going to lose on taxes is even greater than the delta between what the seller wants and what the broker thinks it's worth. The third way that a broker is presented with a listing opportunity kind of goes back to the second way, in which the seller contacts the broker, states a price they'd want, but the broker feels like that seller is of the kind of person that, if properly presented to the market and enough offers come in at a lower price that the broker knew the property was worth, that the seller would still do a deal. For example, if the seller called up and told the broker they want $20 million for the asset, the broker does their BOV and internally feels like offers are going to probably come in between 15 and 17 million. But this seller, if I bring him 10, 15 offers between 15 and 17 million, this seller is a smart person. They want to sell. That's still a phenomenal price based on what they bought it for and their IRR over their listing period. I know that they're a reasonable human being, that if I brought them that many offers, that they will see that the market has spoken, that they aren't going to say all those investors, hundreds of people it was exposed to, and the 15 who offered on it, they're all wrong. I don't think this is the type of person. So a broker like me may take on those kinds of listings. So how do we know if the seller is of that type? There's transactional history in the past, maybe. We know what their rates of returns have been along the way. But it's mostly about character, how the person reacts, how they speak, their demeanor. But it's also having faith in the seller, that they have enough faith in me, that they know that the way I'm going to develop the marketing materials, how I'm going to expose it to the market, my ability to produce and negotiate offers, that they know it's been properly done and will accept what the market has said. Brokers don't want to take on that $20 million listing if the seller has been very, very clear that they will not take less, that they almost have a mandate for a certain return or a certain price threshold, maybe perhaps based on their prospectus to their investors, whatever the case may be. That would be a waste of time. But keep in mind, in the number 2 scenario, where the broker does the BOV and just doesn't believe he can get anywhere near that seller's price, that price has to be so crazy high that a broker feels like even the highest offer they could ever get from the most special person won't pay it. In other words, there are times when a broker is presented with a listing opportunity from a seller who mandates a price that they think is very high and has made clear they won't take less, but it's close enough to the range of offers that broker thinks the offers will come in at, which is below their mandate, but it's close enough where they feel like someone could potentially pay that because it's not totally out of the realm. And many brokers will take on those listings, including me, especially in a hot market where there are big prices being paid and it is conceivable it could sell for that. I know that may be a little confusing, but just keep this in mind. Almost every deal is priced right because they sell. Very rarely are there a price given to a broker by a seller that's so out of the realm they don't even take the listing, because that would mean that the seller is so out of touch with what's going on in the market, which is rare. Listen, we all know that anyone can make any Excel spreadsheet tell the story of any price. The buyer's job, of course, is to underwrite the asset and offer the greatest price they can possibly pay with no regrets, no matter what other offers come in at. That way you've left it all on the field. And if someone paid more than you, good for them. Hope they make lots of profit down the road, and you're on to your next one. I hope that gave you a little bit of insight into how brokers are approached with their listings. If it brought you some value, please hit the like down below. Make sure you subscribe and hit that little notification bell right next to the subscribe button. That way you're made aware of each video each week. See you guys on the next one.